How's it going, everyone? It is Andre Williams, and over here we talk stocks. We focus on one thing: always protect your profits. And today we're going to be talking about Lucid. It did have a pullback on the day. No surprises there because as far as the earnings result, we know they were not great. It was quite disappointing. They did come in below expectations in various categories, which we have discussed. And I told you, don't be surprised if you see a pullback on the day between 18 to 20%. It got to that 18%, but of course, we've seen a bit of a recovery. But we'll talk about it further in this video. I won't waste any more time. Let's jump into the agenda. If you're new to this channel, I just want to let you know we have timestamps down below inside the description. But if you're a shareholder or you're thinking about taking a position, I highly suggest you watch this full entire video. So the first thing we're going to go over is the technical analysis. We're going to be taking a look at the overall price action. We want to know support. We want to know resistance. We want to know what it looks like in the bearish case scenario and as well as in the bullish case scenario. And then we're going to go on Fintel, taking a look at the recent institutional ownership and short interest information. The reason this is important because it does have an impact on the way the stock performs. And then we're going to be taking a look at the order flow distribution. We want to know the buying and the selling behavior on the retail side and as well as on the institutional side. And then when all of that is done, we'll be going into the final thoughts and as well as some more details. So let's get to it. So we're going to do a technical analysis for Lucid. Let's see how it performed on the day. So it ended up closing at $24.99, being down 13.77%. On the low, it tested $23.38, and then on the high, testing around $25.75. When we take a look at the volume stats on the day, you can see we traded at 62.631 million shares, and the average volume over 10 trading days is at 32.55 million shares. So you can see that we dealt with a good amount of selling pressure on the day. Now, when we take a look at our chart, which is a daily chart, we can see from the RSI down below, it is at 39.86. And then when we take a look at our moving averages here on the chart, we are below the 100-day, the 50-day, the 200-day, and as well as the 21-day EMA. So we ended up seeing a low of $23.38. No surprises there because like I said in the previous video, don't be shocked to see it being down around 18 to 20%. So now, as far as if you want to see a bullish move from Lucid, it has to come back to reclaim at least a $25 level and then get up to $27.50. If it continues to be bearish, especially knowing that the earnings has come out and the sentiment has changed, then we could see if it could pull back all the way here to $21.94. If this level does ever end up breaking, then that's where we can get down right here to $20. I know many of you are looking out for this level. So again, this is something that you're going to want to keep a very close eye on, but I feel if the market does turn around and it begins to pick up, especially inside of tech, there's a strong possibility Lucid can make a move to the upside. And once it gets above $27.50, then you want to see how well it fares when it gets to the 200-day around $29.70. Could be a resistance area there, but again, we know institutions just love Lucid. Now let's move on to the short interest information. So we're going to take a look at the recent institutional ownership and short interest information for Lucid. As we scroll down further on the page, green rows indicate new positions while red rows indicate closed positions. So when we take a look at the recent filings from March the 1st, we have Parkside Financial Bank and Trust that purchased 200 shares. And as far as for the other filings, we covered that in yesterday's video, and we did realize, or not even realize, but do know institutions have been showing a lot of interest in Lucid. And also when we take a look at our graph here, we can see as of late institutions have loaded up even more. Now when we take a look at the short interest, the off exchange short volume ratio is at 58.45%, and then for the off exchange short volume it is just over 11.47 million shares. Scrolling down further on the page, the short shares availability is at 0, updated 25 minutes ago. And then for the short borrow fee rate, as far as for the max on the day, it was at 8.80%. And as far as for the minimum, it was the same. And then when we take a look at the history of the short volume, we could see for the close of the 25th, it was at 57.49. And then for the close of the 28th, being at 58.49. 0.45. So what this shows us, Lucid does continue to have short squeeze potential. Now let's move on to the order flow distribution. Now let's take a look at the order flow distribution for Lucid. So we see on the inflow it's at 338, and then on the outflow it's 276. So we ended up having an inflow day, and keep in mind these numbers are in the millions. Taking a look at the breakdown, on the large it was 1.90, on the medium it was 216, and then on the small it was 120. Taking a look at the outflow side, you can see on the large it was 7.17, on the medium it was 170, and then on the small it was 98.73. Taking a look at the large scale orders in the last 5 days, you can see for today, March the 1st, it being that negative outflow of 5.27 million. Analyzing the numbers even further for the small scale orders that tend to represent the retail side, we had more buying than we had selling. And then when we take a look at what happened on the medium, we had more buying than we had selling. And then when we take a look at the largest represents whales, institutions, and funds, we had more selling than we had buying. And then when we take a look at the turnover ratio, it was at 3.81%. So yes, it's a little bit elevated for a stock like Lucid, but it's still not too bad whatsoever. But do understand, they had earnings the night before, so there was a strong sell-off in the beginning of the day. It did start picking up, so that's one thing we're going to continue to keep our eyes on. But it's also not surprising, no, there's a lot of institutional interest since Lucid is in the NASDAQ 100 at the end of the day. We'll talk about it further inside of the final thoughts, so let's get into it right now. So for my final thoughts for Lucid, in regards to the price action, I'll be very curious to see if it could hold up $25 by the end of the week. If it is able to do this, then we can look forward to seeing a push going to above $27.50. That is a key level. If it still fails to get past $27.50, that's where we see some weakness. But one thing you're going to want to keep an eye on are the market conditions. If you're seeing that tech is strong and stocks are moving up, but Lucid isn't, then there's a concern, and that's where the stock could pull back, because that just shows there's not a lot of demand inside of the market. If tech is strong, or if you see Tesla going on one of those monster runs, then you know that institutions are continuing to load the boat in Lucid. This is very important for you to keep an eye on and to understand. You want to make sure that there's interest in the market for this stock. And considering what they were talking about in earnings, it is all common knowledge. We know a lot of car manufacturers have been struggling, dealing with supply chain shortages and so forth, and also the justifications for the reasons why they haven't been able to hit those estimates that they have is actually good. And the reason why it is good, because they want to focus on quality over quantity when it comes to their vehicles. So making sure they have the right equipment in there to make sure they're giving the best driver experience. And at the end of the day, it's about luxury. It has a pretty hefty price tag on it. So that's just one of the things where, you know what, I actually do respect Peter Rawlinson, and I love the direction that he is going in. But as far as what I'm going to be looking at for this stock, it needs to hold $25. That is very key. So add that to your homework, and as well as your due diligence, because if you can't hold up $25, remember, it wasn't too long ago where we were testing right at $21. So I know for myself, if it does fall below 20 bucks, I'm going to buy up some shares. Also, when we went on Fintel, taking a look at the recent institutional ownership, you guys already know institutions are continuing to buy into Lucid. So they definitely do believe in the long-term prospects, because we know as far as institutions are concerned, they're not going to be throwing their money in stocks if they don't see a potential return on their investment. And then when we take a look at the short interest information, it does continue to have short squeeze potential. So the moment we have some more buying volume coming into the play, or maybe they put out a strong catalyst, that's where we could see this stock move. We've already seen its past performance. We already know how volatile it can get. So that's why I say you want to keep this on your radar, especially if you are a trader. And if you are a long-term investor, I would be keeping an eye on how the overall market is doing and seeing how Lucid is performing, and then ask yourself some questions. If the stock does decide to pull back, will you add more? If you are not going to add more, then stay away from this play. If you don't mind adding more if it decides to pull back, then by all means, push that buy button. But remember, this is not financial advice, and you need to do your homework, do your due diligence. Just don't go off what I'm saying in this video or any YouTube channel in general, because at the end of the day, it is your hard-earned money, and you're the one that's going to have to go through that mental journey to deal with the fluctuations that's in a growth stock like this. So let's see how Lucid performs going into tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll be talking real soon.